So, if we're looking at the master plan, the goal of the master plan is to be able to give you guys a workout you can go to, that you can be, this is my safe house. You know, if I come in and I've got a bunch of people that I don't know quite what to do with or what the alterations might be, then this is we're trying to develop this workout, and this is just a 1.0 version of it right now. We're trying to develop a workout so that way you can say, this will be the master plan workout. We'll also have it be a workout that new trainers can come in and follow, so that way they can have something. So like when Monica came in, we gave you this, and then obviously it wasn't refined enough, because then 2 people showed up. Then you're like, what do I do with 2 people? So we need to tweak that enough. Let me talk a little bit about something this doesn't talk about, which is how to arrange the groups. So, because I know that one of the things that can be tricky is to say, you know, if 2 people show up, what do I do? Or to say if 7 people show up, like, you know, or 9 people show up, what's the appropriate circuit selection to go to? What we want to make sure that we do is we keep the group close as a whole. We don't want to have one group working down one end and one group working out the other end. Because as far as the workout goes, we're trying to create a workout experience. In creating that workout experience, we need to make sure it's, you know, fear-free, meaning that, like, you know, the client isn't afraid of being judged, isn't afraid of hurting themselves, isn't afraid that they won't get a good enough workout, and isn't afraid that the instructor will say something embarrassing to them. It's also important that we try to build a community when we have that opportunity. Give people a chance to be partners with each other. Sometimes if you know the group well enough, then you can say, I know that, you know, we've got someone new, so I'm going to pair them with someone who's really good at, like, you know, sort of offering advice and or being gentle and kind, or saying, like, you know, things that would make that person feel comfortable. And we've got some members that are great at that, or sometimes we have members come in and it's quite clear that that member does not enjoy talking, does not enjoy really being sociable, or perhaps rubs people the wrong way, and then you've got other people that can feel the same way. And sometimes we don't want to put, you know, 2 sticks of dynamite next to each other, to use an analogy. Not that we have many people like that, but as we grow, we need to sort of be mindful of that and how we can maximize the experience, or create, like, the best environment within which that experience can happen. So if we have different numbers of groups, if we have, let's start with a large group, the classes technically max out at 12. So if we say 12 is the max that we've got, then we can have different formations of that. If I were to draw out the studio, I've got a little corner space there. But if I were to draw out the studio, pretty much right now how it's set up, we have rail yards over here, we have 3 cables here. That's my fancy depiction of a cable. We have serious straps. So we have 1, 2, 3 bars for serious straps. And we have about 7 of those. And then we have dumbbells over here. And then we have a Vipers that can go pretty much anywhere. That's a Viper. It's a pretty good Viper, right? I know years of New York School of Artistic Creativity. Yeah, that's right. So from here, if we said, okay, I've got a group of 12, I could go 12 equals 4 times 3, so 4 groups of 3. I've only got 3 cable columns, so I can't have a group of 4 if I want to use the cable columns. The second I have 4, then that takes this out. I could also, but I could say, okay, if I don't want to use the cable columns, I could have, you know, so here I could have 4 groups of 3 people, or I could have 3 groups of 4 people, and I can have 4 people doing serious straps, 4 people doing a Viper drill, and 4 people on the rail yard, or I could have 4 people doing some sort of a drill with the dumbbells, or also we've got our roller boards. So we could have 4 people doing, you know, push-ups on the rollerboard, or some sort of one-leg sliding drill, or something like that. So if I think about it, whenever I try and put the circuit together, I'm trying to think about how can I break it down, and so that I can. And I'm thinking about what movement pattern haven't I done yet, and with this, the movement patterns are done for us. So hopefully we don't have to think about that, and if we don't have to think about that, but we do have to think about this, then I might go, what's more important to me? Do I want to, if I've got, say, a group of 12, let's stick with that, then I might say I want to go a rail yard group, a Viper group here, and a cable column group here. So that way, sorry, if I've got, and then maybe I'll go, and then I'll bring the dumbbells up to here, and then I'll have a dumbbell group right there. So in other words, what I've done is I've put the group close together. So they can all sort of like, you know, make snide comments to each other about my ability to teach or whatever they'd like to do. But the whole idea is that it's more important to me that this group becomes a community and feels a community. And if I have two people and I put one person over here and one person down here, then what I've done is essentially made my job hard, because now I have to run over here, run back here, and check in and see how they're doing. So let me clear out the middle there. So now if I go, okay, so that's 12. If I have 11, then what I can do is I can go, just treat that like a 12. And I can go, you know, 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 3. Okay, I still need to have 4 be my I can't use any table columns because I've got 3, and I've got 4 in these other groups. So while I've got 3 here, I've got 4 here. I could also say that, okay, so now, or alternatively, if I had 11, that could also equal a 2 plus a 2 plus a 2 plus a 2 plus a 3. And I would do a 3 and not 5 2s and a 1. Because what I don't want to do is have one person feeling like they're hanging out with all their friends. Okay, I want to give that person like a chance to be with others. So I don't want to, I rarely want to isolate one person out. Unless that one person is someone who I feel like, you know, needs, you know, maybe they come in, they're like, hey, you know, terrible news, just got fired or something like that. And I'm like, okay, now I'm trying to read, does this person need cheering up, or do they need like a little bit of alone time? And I might read that in my warm-up as I sort of say, okay, how is this person behaving? What do I think they need? Are they interacting? Are they kind of being quiet? So I might give someone a one situation, or if someone, you know, has an injury, and I know that that person with the injury always pushes themselves hard and gets competitive with whoever they're in a group. If I know that about them, then I can say, okay, you know what, buddy, I'm not going to give you a reason to get hurt. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put you as your own person, your own army of one. And that way, you don't have to worry about anyone judging you, and I'll be the one that keeps an eye on you. Does that make sense? Cool. I always love having groups for a couple of reasons. One, that then creates like sort of like we've got an inter-community conversation, but also there's an intra-community sort of like a conversation, and it could be verbal or non-verbal conversation that's happening. So these two people can sort of like, you know, work out together and sort of like, you know, talk to each other while they go to the next station, or make comments or a high five or something like that. But also it means that if one person didn't see the exercise, they can ask the other person. And that way it makes our job easier as instructors, because now we can know exactly what's happening here. The number that really gets people, that got me for ages, was 7. Because if I have 8, I can have 4 groups of 2 or 2 groups of 4. I'll vary it. And Monica, we had a class recently where we had one circuit. We had 8 people. We had one circuit, and we did, you know, 2 groups of 4. We had 4 groups of 2 people, and then we did the same thing, 4 groups of 2 people. And then all of a sudden we found that we were like 45 minutes into the class, and we didn't want to do 15 minutes of stretch. Sorry, we were 40 minutes into the class. I didn't quite have time to do another circuit of 4. So then all we did was we went 4 people in 2 groups. And for that exercise, what we did was we did like a small body parts group. So then we sort of said, okay, cool. Normally our principles embody push, pulls, lunge, squat, twist, bend, crawl, and what did I miss? Push, pull? Yeah, so push, pull, lunge, squat, bend, step, twist and crawl. Good. So 8 movement patterns. If we've got 8 movement patterns out of the way, or we know that we haven't done one purposely because 3 people in the class have bad low backs, and we said, you know what, it's easier just not to do that one, then we're leaving that one out. Then we can say, okay, cool. So that we've got now 8 movement patterns. I'm happy with it. So now I could say, yeah, let's do some biceps and tricep press outs. We do it on our serious strap. So serious strap group here, maybe push-up group over here, or dumbbell group over here. But again, whatever it is, I want to try and keep the 2 groups close-ish, and then I can do that. And then I can just have, okay, group A, group B, good. Do the exercise, okay, switch out, done. Now grab a mat, and now I'm done with it. I want to be thinking about In terms of setup, I want to be thinking about the exercise I'm going to do ahead of time, that is, as the set is finishing, because by the time we get to that last set, then no one has to worry about what's the set after that, and I know it's the last set. All I need to do is be giving encouragement, and again, doing my surfing through the crowd thing that we do anyway. And now I want to be thinking about what's the next one. So now I'm thinking about, okay, what's happening after this? So then the second I give them a drink break, I say, good job everyone, 2 claps, 2 claps. The second they start walking off, I'm already setting stuff up because I've already done that mental piece. The toughest part about the master class, or about any class, is that when we're trying to do new stuff, is that we tend to be, generally speaking, we tend to go, okay, this exercise, okay, exercise is over, good. Okay, let me think of another exercise. And that's where we get stuck. Or that's where people start to feel that there's too much of a break. The biggest complaint I get from members is it didn't feel intense enough. And what I hear them saying there is I feel like I was standing around too much and there was too much explanation. We want to provide a small amount of explanation, but not so much that there's nothing left to tell the person. In other words, I want to give them the big blocks, and 2 or 3 big pointers, keep the chin up, pull all the way back, or pull the wrist into the ribs. Talk about 1 or 2 things that people normally do wrong, maybe instead, but just go, okay, this is the exercise, watch me, good, see me do it, okay, here's the next one. And then I'll choose people. I won't say, who wants to do this? I'll say, you and you're right here. Or sometimes if, that I'll try and make it fun, and I'll say, okay, like this morning we had 3 people wearing purple shirts. So okay, team purple. Okay, team students. Okay, team workaholics. Team MILFs. Whatever. So, like that. Yeah, maybe. I was gonna say, maybe just I should do that, but really, even I shouldn't do that. So, that's right. Yeah. I'll be like Jamie used to own. Yeah, Jamie used to own this studio. So yeah, that's right.
I did that costume for Halloween. My friend said it would be a NILF.
A NILF. Ah, nice. I like that. I totally remember that. She's a TILF. That's right. Yeah, cut that out. All right. So for the active assessment, that piece right there, I'm just going to talk through it real quick. Let me talk through the principle of what's present in the in this. So if you look, you'll see on the first column it says stage, warm up, circuit number 1, drink break, circuit number 2. And then it has the active assessment, and then across the top it has then movement name. Obviously that's what that is. I've made some abbreviations, but really there are multiple variations we could put in here. Each of these exercises could easily be 4 or 5 lines each. If I think about things like, what is the foot position? What is the hand position? What is the muscle I'm emphasizing? What is the action that I'm taking with the upper body relative to the lower body? How far do I want to go down in this exercise? How much do I want to, what sort of speed of the reps do I want to do? What kind of a range of motion do I want for the legs versus the arms? What sort of timing do I want? Do I want the legs and the arms in sync? Do I want to do the legs and the arms out of sync? Do I want one arm to be doing something different than the other arm, different than the other leg? Do I want to be going viper lunge with the same side forward versus the opposite side forward? Do I want to be going viper lunge with an uppercut going to the sky, uppercut going to the chin, uppercut going to the ground? So what I've done is I've given room to self-select in this and given it to you guys to be able to say, here's what I think I want. But really, each of these exercises serves as an active assessment throughout the whole exercise, throughout the whole workout. In other words, our job is, as we're constantly going to person, and checking in with them, what we really want to do is make sure that the assessment doesn't stop at the warm-up. The assessment is constantly going through the whole exercise. So that way, when I see people, when someone says, yeah, my shoulder's kind of hurting me, and I go, okay, cool, give me a pull instead of a push, I might say, okay, cool, try these dumbbell exercises, and I might give them the lighter dumbbell and say, go slower. And if I see them going, bam, bam, and they're just getting creative with this arm, and they're maybe too tough to tell me, or maybe they don't even realize they're doing it, I can then say, okay, cool, that right there is my cue to give you a different version of this exercise. And from there I can, and whenever I create a change, what I've tried to do with these changes is to say, okay, what hurts? What's a variation I can give you that doesn't require you to use a different piece of equipment? In some cases, we can't avoid it, but most of the time, we can just make a few small tweaks. And sometimes it can be as simple as a hand position change. Sometimes it can be as simple as a joint emphasis change. In other words, with squats, like sometimes people are doing squats, and I can say, okay, cool. Instead of, if I watch from the side, if I see the knees just diving forward, it could be as easy as me saying, try to imagine you're sitting back in a chair and lift your toes up as you go. And all of a sudden, that action, driving the knees forward as opposed to dropping the butt back, they still feel it as a squat, but they all of a sudden now are putting a lot less pressure on the knees as they squat versus dropping the butt back as they move. Same exercise and different emphasis on the body parts. The beauty of it is that most trainers don't get that knowledge. They sort of just go, let's try a different exercise. Or do sit-ups. I mean, like in boot camps, basically, like sit-ups and push-ups is like the go-to. We have an opportunity to have a point of difference and also to educate ourselves and just to experiment on what works and what doesn't work. So anytime we need to change, there's a few, to understand the principles, there's a few places I've gone in terms of finding alternatives. One is joint emphasis. Two is range of movement. And then three would be, let's see, range of movement. Three would be, plane of movement. Okay, so what I mean by that is, so joint emphasis. So if I say, okay, instead of saying, bend at the knees, or I might instead of saying put a weight on the toes, I'll say put a weight on the heels. Or if they say that still hurts, then I might say, okay, cool, instead of bending the knees a bunch, tilt at the hips. And all of a sudden, they're still doing exercise, they're still carrying the same weight I've got. Maybe I've got doing a lunge, instead of doing a lunge uppercut, now they're going a lunge drop down uppercut as they come back. And the difference would be that I've got them loading the hip with a weight and then coming back and doing the uppercut movement as opposed to doing the uppercut movement with a lunge, putting a lot of pressure on that front knee. That would be one thing where I would change the joint emphasis. I do that a lot when people have bad knees or ankle problems. Range of motion means that if someone says that hurts to go that deep, then I might say, show it to me and show me where it starts to, show me just before it starts to hurt. So they might say, okay, there. So I could say, okay, great, here's a heavier load. I want you to go super slow to that exact point. Okay, now try it, does that hurt? And often the answer will be no. It'll be that they're really safe in this range. Deeper than that is where they really get scared. And and we don't want that. There's lots of research that shows that once the body gets hurt in one area, the second it starts to get close to that area, it gets nervous, it switches on muscles, it actually gives itself a higher chance of being injured because something else is compensating to try and account for this area that said, no, red flag, don't go in here. This room is, when we went in this room last time, is where we felt pain and where we hurt ourselves. So that's just one example of a change we can make. Is a range of motion, and I guess I'll write loading because I tend to, when I give someone a shorter range of motion, I tend to load them a little heavier, so that way they don't feel like they're just a big wuss. So I'll say, no worries, I'm just going to make this harder by giving you a heavier weight but a smaller range of motion. So instead of going all the way overhead like they are, I'm going to give you weights that are a little bit heavier and you're just going to go to here.
Do you typically change the tempo when you change the range of motion?
If I wanted to keep, I can.
I mean, if you add more load, would you do load and tempo?
I could choose. Typically, I wouldn't bother with tempo. I would just say, okay, cool, you get a heavier weight instead of going here, because I know that part's going to break your shoulders, you get a little heavier weight and you're just going to go here. Or if I didn't have that choice, let's say I only had, say, like 10s out and I didn't want to go get a pair of 12s or 15s, then I might say, okay, you're going to do 10s, but you're going to go, instead of going here, you're going to go here, slowly down. Or, so let me add that as a fourth one, what you're saying, is tempo. And then even, I can add a 5 and say instability. And so if I say tempo, I can make an exercise much harder by going really slow on the eccentric or and the concentric, or I can say give me a little 1.5, halfway up, down, halfway, down, up, and all of a sudden that lighter weight is under has greater time and attention, so to speak, as opposed to being able to relax and then come back, just to use an example. I could also say instability. I could say, I want you, instead of doing this exercise, I want you to do this exercise, but I'm going to have you do it standing on one leg on the balance board. And then I've added instability to it. Or if someone's doing push-ups, I might say, okay, I don't want to make it. And I can do this to make an exercise harder as well. Now, the range of motion I don't want to play with too much. I don't want to make people go too far through a range of motion. I want what I might call a real-world range of motion. Sometimes I see people doing like deadlifts, and they're doing it standing on a raised platform, so they have to reach even further down to get the bar. That would be an example of them saying, oh, if I go through a greater range of motion, that's better, right? My response would be, it depends. So if you said, I'm trained to be an Olympic gymnast, I would say, then yeah, you need that flexibility to be able to get through there and be strong right at the bottom. However, if you don't often find yourself standing on a stair, trying to reach lower down than the stair, then do we really need strength in that range of motion? If I say I wanted to be able to do the splits, I might say, are you joining Cirque du Soleil soon? Because if you are, then yeah, we need to do the splits. But if you aren't, then maybe we don't. Maybe we say, what's the range of motion I need to be functional? And I could say, to be functional, you need to be able to put your socks on, be able to get up in the morning and get dressed. That's a functional thing. Also, maybe just say, be able to play with my kids. So instead of emphasizing and having a massive amount of strength here, I might say, I want to have more strength out here. So that way I can pick stuff up and be strong in 3 planes of motion. Planes of motion right here, talk about that, is to say, okay, I had a client this morning, Caitlin, who Caitlin said, if I do a side lunge, that hurts. So I said, if I do a forward lunge, that hurts. And I said, well, give me a side lunge. She said, that doesn't hurt. So all of a sudden, while everyone else was doing walking lunges for their drill this morning, I said to Caitlin, give me a side lunge and give me a big tilt. So what I did was I made 2 tweaks. I changed the joint emphasis. I said, instead of a side lunge, where this knee does a bunch of bending, I said, give me a side lunge and tilt down. So that way, I not only said, let me take this knee to a different plane of motion, and the knee said, oh, frontal plane, I'm much better. And that was okay, but I wasn't happy with it because it still hurt a little bit. So I said, hey, give me a tilt. She said, that's much better. So she went tilt, and just basically went all the way up, and then went all the way back on the other side. And I was able to give her an exercise where she still felt like she was part of the group doing their lunges. She was just doing something that was a little bit easier on her knees. Range of motion, same thing. If someone has low back pain, then I might say, okay, let's just go top half. Because when you get down to the bottom is when people seem to really want to get creative with their low back in that sense. And then low, what I could do is, for instability, to speak to instability here, what I could do if someone is doing push-ups way too easy, is I could throw them a Viper. And say, okay, hands on the Viper, so that's unstable, let's see you do that. I could have them put their hands on rollers, which you've seen me do and you guys have done as well. To do bear crawls with hands on rollers adds another level of instability that the body has to control. If someone doesn't like that, I can say, hands off rollers, hands on ground, while everyone else has hands on rollers. If they don't like that, then I might say, hands on the, instead give me a sideways push-up with the hands on the rail yard. Because then what I've done is instead of taking them from here to there, and then there's a little bit less load because they're not like that, trying to push their whole body weight up. They're like that, trying to push their body weight away. So the physics means that it's a little bit less. They're pushing less of their body weight by being at that angle. Cool. So different ways we can do it. What I've emphasized in here is joint. Okay. That doesn't mean that you couldn't make a joint and plane of motion. That doesn't mean you couldn't make a tweak with any of these things. Okay? Good. All right. So segment number 1. So let's go. What time is it? 6:04. All right. great. Jeff, would you pause that, and we'll go in the room and try and steal a corner. Yeah, just press the red button again.